Well, just like that, summer is over. I cannot believe we are already to Labor Day weekend. So I hope you are able to be enjoying something out there. I've had to restart this twice already, so we are going to try to keep this briefish. I will see you on the other side. Hello and welcome to this episode of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I am a knitter and a crocheter. You can find me on Instagram as Gary Knits, Gary Rides, and over on Ravelry, where I just started a new group for this podcast, replacing the one that I had for the knit-alongs. I'm on Ravelry as Gary Knits and Rides, so go check that out. There are a couple threads going, and I'm hoping to continue to add more as we move along. Hope you are having a great week and enjoying the tail end of your summer. We have some barbecues with some neighbors over the next few days, so looking forward to that, but even looking forward more to some cooler weather, although it doesn't get terribly hot here. Summer is not my favorite time of the year. I just do not like the sweaty season. It's been a busy-ish couple of weeks, but all of that pretty much due to choices that I've made. Nothing particular pressing going on besides some knittings on little bits of deadline, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. We had our fourth Hollywood Bowl concert of the season this last weekend. A band originally based out of LA called Mount Joy. They're, I think, huge now. We were not familiar with them. Perfectly pleasant evening sitting outside with some food and some drinks and listening to some good music, pleasant music, but we weren't super fans, unlike some of the folks who were around us who definitely knew every word to every song. Much younger crowd than usual, I would say, based on our bus ride. What we did get to do that was really fun was we got to go one morning down to the Bowl for a rehearsal with the LA Philharmonic. Our shows at Hollywood Bowl are all kind of rock, pop, world music kind of shows because they're sponsored by the local NPR station, but the LA Philharmonic, which runs the season at the Hollywood Bowl in the summer, has a ton of classical music concerts there, but we don't get to go see them unless we buy extra tickets, which we usually don't do because 6 is about the most we want to be going back and forth down to the Bowl. But they do open up rehearsals sometimes during the summer, and so we got to go down one morning last week, and they were rehearsing Stravinsky, a violin concerto, and Rites of Spring, and it's just such a cool, different experience at the Bowl. It's until the sun gets super hot. The morning's very pleasant. You know, the birds flying around, and you're outdoors listening to wonderful classical music. I always love rehearsals because they mic the conductor, and you can kind of hear the back and forth with the orchestra and kind of how they're working on the piece together. So I always find that fascinating, and I'm not going to complain about sitting outside, especially if there's shade, and listening to some wonderful music and knitting for a morning. That's about it. So that was a really fun thing. And then after that, we stopped on the way back for my Italian lesson. We met a woman at our local farmer's market who is from Italy. She mans a booth that sells, pasta and cheeses and salumi and things like that. And she's Italian. My husband speaks Italian fluently. And so they got to talking a few months ago. I had studied Italian for 2.5 years, kind of before the pandemic and through the pandemic. Our next door neighbor, when we first moved to California, was a Romance language tutor. So she and I worked together for 2.5 years on Spanish and Italian. Probably not the smartest idea I ever had. I had a background in Spanish from school, so that was more familiar to me. Italian was my first foray. Anyway, she got a full-time teaching job a year and a half or so ago. It was about the same time that I was ramping up into my final year of fundraising to try to hit my $200,000 mark for Aid's life cycle. And when she had to step away from our lessons, I just kind of put it to the side. But I do miss, particularly the Italian. Spanish is probably far more useful for me, but I really enjoyed the learning of Italian. So when this woman from our farmers market said that she was an Italian teacher as well, I let it percolate for a couple months, and then finally decided to jump back in. So I'm taking lessons with her. We'll see how it goes. I have definitely lost a ton, especially on the vocabulary side, but a lot of the grammar is coming back to me. I think that we're going to do a lot more conversation than going through workbooks and things like that. So it should be fun. We'll see how it goes. But we did that, and that was the other kind of big new thing that's been going on, with the exception of the thing that I'm about to to talk about with you. So there's been a lot of knitting, a lot of whips. Again, some of that by my own choice, some of it, again, by my own choice, but not really. Anywho, so let's talk a little bit about craftivism. The big thing, and this is one of the things that has now sort of jumped into taking a fair amount of time from me, is I am part of the organizing group behind Makers for Kamala. I think on the last episode I talked about Makers for Harris, and I'm going to talk about that again. I like to think of these two operations or two kind of things that are going on as like two different paths with similar goals. Then we're kind of working in tandem and working together, so it's not like two completely distinct operations, even though they have they're very similar names. I can see how people get confused. But let's talk about Makers for Kamala right now. So I don't know, 3 weeks ago or so, a group of us kind of coalesced around this idea of, wouldn't it be fun? Most of us were knitters, to put together one of these live stream Zoom call things that have been going on, where different affinity groups, dudes for Kamala and deadheads for Kamala, have gotten together and sort of had speakers from within the community talking about the importance of the election, raise some money, have some fun. And the group got a little bit bigger. We got some other people from outside of the knitting world, mainly from like the prop making community in Hollywood involved. And we've kind of formed this group. We decided on the name Makers for Kamala because Molly over at Optimistic Soap was already using Makers for Harris for her thing. So we are Makers for Kamala. We have scheduled a live stream event on September 15th. It's going to run from starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. I don't know exactly how long it's going to go. I would say somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours if I had to guess. We're putting together a program. I think we've got some really fun folks lined up. So as I said, we broadened it to the making community writ large. If you head over to the Makers for Kamala Instagram account, you'll see we have put up a bunch of these little logos with knitters and crocheters and quilters and bookbinders and cosplayers, trying to widen the tent as much as we can, because we want to gather thousands of makers from across the various disciplines and communities for the event. And we're going to try to have, obviously we're not going to get every single discipline covered with a big name speaker, but we're hoping to have, some stars from the knitting community, some stars from the quilting community, some stars from various communities come on and talk about the importance of making, the importance of this race, and then some action items that we can all be doing to sort of help move the ball forward in terms of winning the elections. So we've been furiously planning and trying to get people signed up to speak. So that's been taking a fair amount of my time. So if you are so inclined, head over to Makers for Kamala to the Instagram account. There is a link in the bio. I will put a link to everything down below in the show notes, and here's a QR code. If you're not watching this on your phone, you can take a picture of that and get right to the show notes. So I'll have a link to our RSVP for the live stream event, a link to the Instagram account. There's a Facebook group we've set up. We've set up a Ravelry group. So for the knitters and crocheters out there, obviously that Ravelry is for you as well as weavers and yarn dyers. So head over there, make sure you RSVP, share as much as you can with whatever making communities you are a part of. Again, like I said, the enthusiasm for this has been pretty amazing right off the bat. I think we're less than 2 weeks in at this point in terms of like officially having something up, and we already have thousands of RSVPs. We want to keep growing this as big as we can, and then try to raise as much money as we can during the event itself. So I think it's going to be a really fun event. If you have any thoughts on that, if you have a connection to a big name in any of these making communities, definitely shoot me an email or comment down below, because our roster of speakers is filling up relatively quickly. But if we have access to or a contact with someone that we could get, that would be fantastic, because it's all about raising awareness and getting more people involved. So that is the Makers for Kamala piece of what is going on, kind of election oriented. I talked about warm the line last episode. As other things that are election related pop across my feed, I will be sure to try to make a note of it. But again, as with everything with Craftivism, if you see something, say something. I don't get as online as I am. I do not get to see every single thing, and I would love to get any direction in terms of like, if you see something going on that you think is really cool, definitely let me know about it. So that is Makers for Kamala, September 15th, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. It's going to be a good time. I will talk about it again, probably in the next episode. Will definitely happen before the event, and by then we'll begin to roll out some of the promotions once we have kind of the program sort of starting to jump. So I mentioned it last week, but I want to mention it again because we are kind of working in tandem with Makers for Harris. So that is an effort that Molly, who I've talked about many times on the podcast, from Optimistic Soap Co., gorgeous soaps, always doing some fundraising efforts, has done a ton of fundraising for the LGBTQ plus community, which is amazing. She and I got started talking because she came out with a fundraising soap for the Harris campaign called Madam President. I'll pop a picture of it up here. I had it last time. And she sold out like instantaneously. And I think she's going to have some more for sale soon. But she put together the Makers for Harris Instagram account. And what she's doing there is she's asking makers, anyone that is doing a project, whether that is a quilt pattern or a cross-stitch design or a knitting pattern or a skein of yarn that's a particular color, anything from the making community where you are using a portion of the proceeds as a fundraiser for the Harris campaign, or if you have something that is basically for free, that then you're asking for a donation for the Harris campaign. Because I've seen a couple of those patterns as well. Craftivist Graham has several patterns, like a patriotic scarf, a patriotic hat. She has a vote cowl where the T is the uterus. I think I posted a picture of it last time. If not, here it is again. And those are all free, but she's asking anyone who downloads those to make a donation to the campaign. So Molly is taking anyone that comes across her feed that she sees that's doing that. Please DM her if you have something. And then she's posting that up in the Makers for Harris feed. So it's just a continuous stream of folks who have patterns and items for sale that are fundraisers for the campaign. So I don't think I'm letting anything out of the bag, but Molly is going to be one of the speakers on the call. And she's going to talk a bit about what she has been doing, not only with her soap, but with the Makers for Harris effort that she's doing to bring awareness to all the stuff going on in the making community for the campaign. So that is full steam ahead. And again, head over to the Makers for Kamala Instagram account, grab those logos. So each of the posts is a different logo, and share that to your community. If you know folks who you think might be interested in it, just tag them in the comment to that particular post, and that'll bring them there, hopefully, and then they can sign up to RSVP. Like I said, we want to make this as big and broad as possible across all of the sort of the making communities. To that end, a couple of things that I wanted to mention specifically from that I discovered from the makers for Harris account that Molly is running. One is Totally Tubular Sock Company. I'm going to put it up here. I wrote Totally Tubular down, and I want to get the Etsy shop name exactly right. This is Elma from here in California, and she has a sock machine, hand crank sock machine, and one of her parts of her business is taking your sock yarn and turning it into sock tubes so that you can then just add the heels, toes, and cuffs and have a pair of socks in a fraction of the time that it would take you to knit one. And she is donating a portion of her sock cranking service fees through the election. I will post everything down below in the show notes. But she's donating a portion of the proceeds, and I will put it up here across the thing if I go back and find it in the midst of editing, for sock cranking for a period of time. So as you can see, I have a fair amount of self-striping sock yarn. As I was working on my KnitStars pattern, I got obsessed with self-striping sock yarn and just bought a bunch of it. I hope to knit them all into socks or knit them all into something at some point, but I thought this would be a great way, since I've got a little bit of backlog on some deadline knitting. I'm not knitting as much for me as I would like. Why don't I just take advantage of this, try out her service? You just go on Etsy, and she has different, stitch counts. So I think there's a 64 and a 72 and different stitch counts. You tell her if you want to leave extra unused yarn for heels and toes and cuffs, and she will do that for you. And then you just plop your sock yarn into the mail it to her. She cranks it out, and then sends the tubes back to you. Now, my tubes are supposed to be arriving today. So I'm going to leave a little blank here, and if they have arrived today before I get to editing, I'm going to pop a little video here of me unboxing them so we can... So I was right. It arrived in the mail. This is the package from Totally Tubular Sock Tubes. So I got the Totally Tubular part, but I didn't know it was sock company or sock tubes. So Totally Tubular Sock Tubes, and I apologize. I think I have referred to, and I think I will refer to the proprietress of this, the Totally Tubular Sock Tubes company, as Elma. Her name is Elba with a B. And she, as I mentioned, she's here in California, and knit some tubes. So let's see what they look like on her machine. I ordered 72 stitches. I sent her two socks. Two skeins. She sent it back in my package, and I told her to leave some extra for heels and toes and cuffs. So, oh my gosh, these look amazing. Sorry for the rattling. So, these are 2 skeins of Desert Vista Dye Works, who, while I'm here and mentioning this, also has several colorways that are fundraisers for the Kamala Harris campaign. One is called I'm Speaking, and it is the colors of different suits that Kamala Harris has worn. So go check out Desert Vista Dye Works. This is 2 of her colorways. Here's her ball band. The first one is called Buddhist Astrology. So she did leave me a little bit left for heels and or toes and or cuffs, and this is how it... Oof, I love that. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for this color. And the really cool thing is Ella sent me, she had a, because I've never worked from a sock tube before, and so I basically understood the concept, but she had a video that she sent me that shows you exactly how to go through and figure out where to cut them apart, where to cut the tube apart for the 2 socks, where to put your heels and toes, and how to do all that stuff. So that is really cool. So that is Buddhist Astrology from Desert Vista Dye Works. I mean, oh, That's so great. The other one, also from Desert Vista Dye Works, is called Coney Island. Here's the leftover of that. And also a really fun, brighter colorway, but a little bit of olive in there, which will work very well with my normal dressing color palette, which is basically navy blue and olive. Love this. Love it. And the fabric is perfect in terms of like the density that I like to have in my socks. And hopefully, you know, 72 is the right. These look like they're about the same size as a normal pair of socks for me. So, yeah, highly recommend. I am thrilled with the way that these turned out. And again, Elba is donating portions of the proceeds from all of her sock cranking services to the Harris campaign. I'll pop up all the details down below in the show notes, but here they are as well in terms of how long that offer is running. Very, very quick. I mean, I sent this out, I think, last Friday, so they were, I mean, obviously we're in California, so the postal time is very short, but less than a week I got them back. So, yeah, 2 more whips to work on. Anyway, back to your regular program. See how they turned out. I'm very excited about them. I think I have the bandwidth to do the heels, toes, and cuffs, at least on one pair now before the election. So that, and I would love to have a new pair of socks to wear. So I thought that was really fun, and I think it's really cool that, you know, part of your service is going to the campaign. So that I found over from Makers for Harris. So definitely go out and check it. There's really some cute stuff over there that people have put together. This thing, I said I found it on Makers for Harris. It's my thing that I put up on Makers for Harris. So if you saw my feed over the last week or so, and I think I may have talked about this last week when I was talking about the stuff I bought at Flock, because I specifically was looking for this Brat green for a project that I had in mind for a fundraiser for and I'm looking out there because I think I just saw the mailman come by, so maybe I will have a little unboxing to show. Anyway, I was looking for this particular green, and I found it, and I was working on a pattern, and I knit it up, and the contrast between that and the black wasn't great. So I got some additional yarn from Knit Picks in this case, and was able to rework the pattern, and I think it worked out much better. So I released 2 things this week up on Ravelry. They are both 100% fundraisers for the Harris campaign. In the notes on the pattern, it says if by some miracle I hit the maximum federal donation limit for a presidential candidate, then it is going to be split. Whatever is after that comes after that is going to be split between 8 Senate races that are critical for us to win, because if we just win the presidency without winning the Senate as well, it's not the worst case scenario, but it's certainly not the best case scenario. So we definitely need a Senate if we want to codify Roe and things like that. So there are 8 races that we absolutely, you know, need to win. I can see if I can recite them off to you here: Montana, Ohio, Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and I didn't count, but there's probably one more in there somewhere. But those are the ones we have to win. I would say Montana, Ohio are going to be the tough ones. So anyway, the excess money will go to that if we, by some miracle, raise more than the limit, which is $3,000 something. Anyway, kind of set a goal of $1,000. I'm already halfway there, which is amazing to me. So that is fantastic. So the first thing, the one that I was working on last time, was the hat. Originally, I had done this up as a beanie. I had come up with this chart. This is not an original idea in terms of the little graphic. I think that Kamala this graphic existed during her 2019 presidential run, but since a certain convicted felon and adjudicated sexual abuser has a lot of trouble pronouncing her name correctly, kind of in a disrespectful way. I thought it would be cool to have this as a hat pattern. We can provide a little visual clue to those folks that continually mispronounce the name. So I wrote up the chart originally, and using the green yarn that I got at Flock, I did a beanie, and I was trying to figure out different ways to do the color work piece of it. It's obviously it's not suited for, you know, straight stranded, because it's only right on the front, and it's big blobby stuff. Tried intarsia in the round. I really dislike intarsia in the round. It just, both of the methods that I've seen, you know, it just looks, at least when I do it, it's very visible where you are doing the turning. Plus, given especially like how low the comma comes down here, you're going to have some longish floats that you're going to have to manage as well. So what I ended up doing was stranded ladderback jacquard. I had it both on the front and the back of the beanie, and did the ladders every five stitches. That was a new technique for me, so it was really fun to learn. It was less efficient, both in terms of time and use of yarn, than what I ultimately did on the second round once I got the lighter green yarn, which was just doing it in duplicate stitch. So the pattern has the chart. You could do it any number of ways. If you love intarsia in the round and you wanted to do one on the front and one on the back, and or just one on the front, knock yourself out, and definitely you can use it for that. If you wanted to just ladderback jacquard and just want to use up a lot of black yarn on the side, or you want a super cozy hat, you can do it. You could do it that way. You could also, this is just a very simple in the round version of the pussy hat, where you 3 needle bind off at the top to get the shape. You could do it in the round as a regular beanie. You just have to, I put the notes in there. Just kind of be mindful of the height of the chart so that it will fit on there. I had at some point thought I would go back and, write up a second version as a beanie, but I don't know that I'm going to get around to that. I have another idea for another pattern that would allow you to kind of do a similar vibe in terms of the graphic, but would be able to be stranded, so it would be a little easier to work in the round. But I don't know if I'm going to get to it, quite frankly. I've got stressed myself out a little bit with the number of whips you're going to see in a minute, and to spend another couple days, knitting it up and writing it up. I'm not sure that that's going to be something I'm going to do. So anyway, this is up. I'll show the other pattern because they're both priced exactly the same, and then I talk about that. So I had the chart already done. And everyone doesn't want to do color. Not everyone wants to have a hat. So with a couple of tweaks, I was able to take that pattern, and I wasn't sure exactly, and it's not as graphically interesting or bold, but I did it up as a washcloth. So it actually looks okay there on the comma gets a little indistinct, I would say, down there, but at a distance, I think you get the idea. So this is a very similar. I'm sorry, I'm holding it backwards. It looks right up on the screen to me. There you go. How about that? Anywho, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I made there's a few small changes to it, and what I did in this version is I put the chart as well as a row by row. So if you are a beginner knitter, if you can knit and you can purl, you can take those even if you can't read a chart, you can take those row by row instructions and do that. So talk about pricing a second. Originally, I put when I first put the hat up, I put it up as $3. I wanted to make it as accessible to everyone. Again, 100% of it is going to be donated after the Ravelry fees, which are de minimis, but there's something. It's not 100%, but it's it's everything except those fees is going to be donated to the campaign. I put it up at $3 because I thought I wanted to make it accessible. Someone in the comments of one of my Instagram posts said, oh, you should raise the price. And I've heard that a lot from folks that, people would, since it's a donation, people would be willing to pay more. And then someone recommended, why not do one of these pay what you like kind of scales? So you price it at a higher price if someone wants to make that donation, and then you have coupon codes that you can get, bring the price down to make it more accessible. So I went back and changed it. So they are both up now as a $10 pattern, which is pricey, but I think that people get that since it's 100% donation, that's what that's for. And then there are 2 different coupon codes in the listing, so you can get it for $5 or you can get it for $3. So anyone who paid $3 in the first few days, don't feel like they're getting a special deal, because everyone can get it at that price if you missed it the first couple days. So that's how they're up their price. And I think that if I do get around to this other pattern, it will be priced the same way. So let me talk about the yarn. We'll start with the dishcloth. So this is a Brat yarn. It's called Brat Handicrafter Cotton. Worsted weight. Both of them are worsted weight patterns. Obviously, you could, if you're down to modify, you can modify using various weights. I think that if you went down to like a fingering weight, I would probably want to redo the chart, because you're going to be able to get a little more detail into it. But anyway, make it bigger and more detailed. So Brat Handicrafter Cotton, the color is hot green. This was the closest color I could kind of find around. I have there's a Knit Picks Dishy, I think that's jalapeno, that's kind of more dark green, and then there's a lighter green, and this is kind of in the middle in terms of like the darkness of it, but it has this sort of bright highlighter yellow kind of vibe to it. So Brat Handicrafter Cotton, hot green. For the hat, I used Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. Actually, I think the colorway is called Peapod. The green is Peapod. The black is Coal. I had just a random skein of the black, so I think the black is the non-superwash, but the Peapod I got was in reverse. The black is a superwash, the green I got was non-superwash, but I think they offer the colors in both superwash and non-superwash. I put a post up on Instagram asking dyers if they had this Brat green, which I guess I could talk about in a second. And so there are some folks who have listed up their colors there. I put stories up as they listed them. One of the other colors, and I got this in the mail, I think after the Knit Picks, and so I didn't end up using this for the sample. If I do the other pattern, I will make it out of this, but this is the Knitted Wit. There we go. Worsted weight, and her color Canopy. They're out of the Pacific Northwest. So this is another alternative. People have asked why the Brat green, why the green, if it had something to do with the campaign. If you're not terminally online, or you're not a, I guess, Gen Zers. I don't know who started this. There is a pop singer, songwriter, pop act called Charlie XCX. Has been around for a long time, sort of electro pop, disco-y kind of dance music. And she has an album out this year called Brat. The cover of it is this color with the word Brat written in, I think it's like an Arial, like sans serif font on the cover. When Harris became the presumptive nominee, so after Biden stepped down, and all the memes kind of took over, one of the memes that kind of got in there was this idea of Kamala is Brat, and Brat being an adjective that there was a whole talk about it being a Brat girl summer, sort of confident and fun and sassy, I guess, for the olds among us to just try to describe Brat. It is a compliment. It's sort of like, just like a feisty, sassy, fun young woman typically, but I think it can be applied to anything. So that's why I chose. It was really just to play on that meme and kind of that enthusiasm. Obviously, I think these would look great in any color. So if you want to do red, white, and blue, or please, I would love to see them. If you post, if you end up making either of these patterns, please tag me on Instagram or Ravelry. I would love to see them in the projects pages way and see what everyone does. So both of those are available now. I'll put the links down below. Time will tell if the third idea that I had came out. So this is kind of my little addition to the actual fundraising from the making community. Again, I'm hoping to raise like $1,000 for the campaign. We're already halfway there in the first. I don't even think it's been a week since the hat came out on Saturday, so not even a week. So that's great. We'll see if we get there. And thanks to everyone who has purchased it. So that's kind of it on the Craftivism side of things. As more details come out about the live stream event and we start to announce who the speakers are going to be, stay tuned for that. I will maybe I'll do a little short or something as that information comes out. I think in the next week or so there is going to be a video that we have put together that kind of talks about who all the organizers behind the event are. This is already out there, but I know I put out a thing, just saying that I'm doing it, trying to get more people to go over to the sign up and RSVP. Adela from Lola Bean Yarn Co. is part of the team, as well as Gigi from Gigi Made It. So I think we're putting together a compilation of, I don't know if there's 12, 13 of us that are involved in kind of putting this thing together. So that should be coming out in the next couple of days, because I know we all had to submit those this week. So that is it on the Craftivism side of things. I mentioned an uncomfortable number of whips. Part of that was, if you'll recall, when the ride was over this year, I was sort of looking forward to this fall. It was going to be a time for knitting for me, and I was going to burn through the whips that had been lingering, some of the knit along and make along whips that had been lingering, and then I was going to get started on some projects that I really wanted to just work on for me. And my husband and I always joke about, like, how do you always get yourselves involved in these things when you say you're going to say no to everything? So there's no learning. No learning has happened. Anyway, got distracted by these two things, and then I mentioned before, friends announced that they are going to be having a baby in November, a couple months ago. So I actually had started on that. So okay, start on a baby blanket. For that, I'm going to show that in a bit. And then all of a sudden, we have another baby coming. So that is 2 happening this fall. And I'm only teasing when I say this, because I know that there are reasons why people postpone announcing that they are having a baby. But for all the knitters in your life, please give us some lead time. Don't wait till 3 months before the baby comes. If we don't see you every week to announce that you're pregnant, it's going to stress us out, because you're going to get a baby blanket from us. Anyway, so cousins-in-law of ours are... a cousin-in-law of mine are announced that they're going to have a baby in November as well, and so I'm going to talk about that. So those 2 things have like jumped into the queue. So all of this, like, knitting for me and a deadline that I'm frantically working on right now, so have sort of superseded all of the free time that I thought I was going to have to, like, knit on new projects for me. So let's get into it. You saw the 2 FOs. So those are the Kamala's Brat hat and dishcloth. The baby blanket, the first one that I mentioned, this is a crochet one that I'm working on from this book, which I had mentioned before, Mix and Match Modern Crochet Blankets. My sister-in-law gave me this for my birthday. It's really kind of like a stitch dictionary, but it is set up so that if you want to make the blankets that are shown in the book, you basically make these strips, these horizontal strips, and then you piece them together. So I picked one of the kind of groupings that they had selected here. I made one adjustment because, actually, this is it. One of the oh, where can you see that? One of the panels is this kind of loopy thing. I didn't think that was great for baby, so I swapped out one of the other patterns. I picked a bunch of colors and kind of blues and greens for colors, and I am doing it all in this Scapias color crafter, 100% acrylic. It's very, very soft. It's been pretty easy to work with, and I have started on a couple of the strips. Of course, the one I picked to start on is the absolute slowest. So this is, she calls it, I think, the crunch stitch in this book. It's just a combination of slip stitches and half double crochets, but it is very, very slow. And this happens to be one of those, and you can even see, I mean, I don't want to always talk about the problems, but it's also one of those patterns that I struggle with in crochet, where it's very easy to, in this case, drop a stitch because the turn is only a single chain, and so that really gets small in there. So it's very easy to get off by a stitch, and this thing getting narrower and narrower. So I've had to rip back a couple of times. Each of the strips is going to be about 40 inches long. I think I've got about 6 more inches on this one to do, but it became so frustratingly slow that I decided I would start another strip so that I could, have something else to work on and to give myself a little more sense of accomplishment, because it seemed like I'd been working for hours on this, and like it would be barely an inch longer. So I started one of the other ones in this also kind of a Brat green, which I hadn't really thought about, and now it's all tangled up. But this one's going so much faster. It is double crochets through the back loop only, so you get this kind of corrugated sideways, it's going to go this way, but this is a corrugated patterning, going so much faster. I think I'm only like 3 or 4 inches shorter on this one, and I probably only worked like an hour or so on that. So fingers crossed that the rest of the stitches, I don't think there's any like single crochet stuff in there, so hopefully the rest of the stitches are going to go pretty quickly. This is going to be the 2 baby blankets are going to be the primary focus once I finish this deadline. I'm sorry, I've tangled up everything here, and I'll just deal with it later. Anyway, ay, Dios mío. So this deadline knitting, which has been kind of my focus for this week. I don't know why. I wanted to be working on other things. This is my KnitStars hat and mitt set. I have sent it off to the testers. I've gotten their feedback, but as one final check, I wanted to knit it one more time myself, and really, like, I've knit it so many times that it's like autopilot, and I really wanted to sit down and be like, okay, this row says this, is that right? And also give me a chance to, one more time to go through the whole document in terms of like punctuation and things like that before I send it off to the tech editor, so it is as easy a job for her as possible. So that is what I am. I've gotten one of the mitts done. Seems to be fine. I'm now more than halfway through the colorwork section of the hat. Again, this pattern is the pattern I designed for my KnitStars masterclass. It is called the Permission Slip Stitch hat and mitt set. This slip stitch colorwork pattern is done with 2 different colors of self-striping yarn, and then is repeated on the mitt. The yarn I'm using, which are available in the kits, is from Biscotte Yarn up in Quebec, and it's a gray, and then there's 2 self-stripings. This one is called Community, so it's like a dark teal, an olive, and a gray. And then this one is called Cite D'Or, so City of Gold, and it's that gold color, a burgundy, and then a brighter turquoise. So the hat's pretty much, I probably could have gotten by without reknitting the hat, because it doesn't have all the shaping and stuff that the mitts do until you get to the crown decreases. But one of my testers did have a question on the crown decreases, and so I just thought I would go through it again just double check everything. So this will be finished up this week, and then it's basically going to be baby blanket bingo, until that gets till those get completed. We finish up with the whips, and then I'll talk about the second baby blanket that I've decided to do. It's not going to be crochet, so I'll have one knit, one crochet, so I can kind of work back and forth on them. The other thing that I did a little bit of work on that I talked about last time was the bubble bandana from Stephen West. So this is living in that crafty little fox bag from Seattle, from Flock. There's one of my little souvenirs from Flock, and this is my Flock souvenir project. So if you recall, I bought a bunch of minis from a bunch of different dyers that were showing at Flock, some of whom were my buddies from the Stitch Out Loud collection, some of whom were new to me, and a bunch of us then decided to cast on this bubble bandana, and here it is. And I cast on last week during our weekly Zoom and did a little bit more, but have not gotten very far. So here's where I am. I had thought I was going to pick and choose between the colors because I wasn't sure, are they all going to work together? But then when I started, I was like, I was going to do 5, but I had 6 colors. And I just decided to do them all. And I kind of, at least so far, am really enjoying how they're working up. So there's some Explorer Knit, some Art and Alchemy, some Sea Change Fiber, some Rainier Roses, some M to the 3rd in there. So a lot of different dyers, and it's a fun pattern. My only quibble and complaint is going to be there's going to be I almost said a bad word. There's going to be a ton of ends to weave in, because I think each little section is, I don't know, it's like 17 rows or something like that. And then you're changing the color every single time, and then with 5 or 6 colors, there's no way to carry them up. So I think the end product will look great. The ending of the product is going to be a real pain in the ass, because there's going to be a ton of ends to weave in. So that's going to be kind of my slow burn project. I think everyone else in my knitting group who started it is going to fly past me, finish it. Although one of them has already ripped his out because he's like, it's going to be too many ends. The other, so it's, and because there are all those little minis and so many changes of colors, it's not a great like bus trip project. So I think the strips are pretty good for that. The other thing is I have is my Otter Pop Disco Stocks for my sister-in-law. This is going to be another long-going project because they're going to have to be put to the side, except for when I'm in the car or something like that. I'm almost through the first full color reprieve, but it's such a great color that Laura at Always Be Kind Yarn did. So those will be continued to be worked on. And then the other thing that is truly the most fun thing that I am working on right now, and I'm just not getting to spend as much time on it as I would like. Hopefully, once we get through the test knit, I can be able to focus on this a little bit more. And just because, even if I just do a couple rows a day, it's not going to get finished anytime soon, but I'm enjoying the process. And this is my Kurdock blanket. So this is a Carol Feller design. I think it's 18 cable panels, 18 panels, 8 different cables across the thing. This is an alpaca wool blend. I can't remember, with Universal Yarn, I think. I can't remember. It'll be done in the show notes down below. But I'm making this as a much delayed housewarming gift for my friend. But I'm just loving how these cables are working up, and the system that I've put in place to manage it has just like calmed me down in terms of me being very, very nervous about this project to now to the point that it's like literally the thing that I'm most excited to pick up and work on, because the system is working so well. I'm about a little over halfway through the first full cable. It's a 36 row full repeat of the widest cable. I think that when I do get to that first full repeat, I'm going to put a lifeline in just to be safe. I fingers, knock on whatever this is made out of. I haven't had any terrible snafus in terms of like dropping a stitch in the middle of a cable or realizing that I twisted when I sort of turned, 8 rows later. I'm doing all the cabling without a cable needle. So I think the largest one is like there may be a 3/3 in there. There's several like 3/1s or 2/3, but I think there may be a 3/3 at some point in the thing. So, that it's been fine. I mean, sometimes we've had to like go back and do things a couple times. And at one point I did pop out the cable needle because it just felt a little more comfortable, but then it just was so much slower that I decided to just persevere and figure it out. But that's the Crochet blanket from Carol Feller. Every time I pick it up, I'm happy. So the second baby blanket project, this is for our cousins. I decided I wanted to do a knit, and I started looking around. I also decided I wanted to work from stash, which kind of made it a little more challenging because I didn't really want to do like a scrappy, granny stripe or something like that. This is family, and so I wanted it to be something special. And even if it's not a baby blanket that they use every day, like can be sort of an heirloomy kind of piece. But because I wanted to work from stash, and I don't have a ton of multiple skein type things in stash, especially in specific weights and things like that. So I kind of had to tailor a little bit to what I had. I decided DK weight was a good weight to kind of work with, and went through and found where I had multiple skeins, and then kind of settled on found a pattern. It's a Stephen West pattern. It's called Flying Foxtails. Here's a picture of it. It's brioche, which is great because I've been really hankering to start a new brioche project. I did a swatch. I think I probably showed it when I was doing the design piece of the KnitStars project, where I did a brioche swatch, and I was like, oh my gosh, I really would love to be working on have a brioche project to be working on. So I'm going to do that. And I had I had several groupings of 2 skeins from my Magpie Fibers Fiber Society, because depending on the month or quarter, whatever, you can pick one variegated, one speckle, or 2 of the same. And oftentimes, if I don't like one or the other, I'll pick 2 of the same. So I had several that were 2 of the same, and so I kind of settled on this. So this is their Swanky DK, which is an MCN base. This is Fiber Society number 34. So it's very pale purple, very pale blue. Even though we know the baby is going to be a little girl, I thought that this didn't read, one way or the other. Not that baby blankets are gendered, but I just thought it was a nice color. And I had some skeins of this Cascade Superwash 220 in this kind of cream color. So I thought that would be a nice pairing. It's actually kind of similar to the one in the sample photo that he did. I think his is not a variegated, but one of the things I love is to do a variegated or speckled yarn as the contrasting color in brioche. I just think it's really fun, and this is very, very subtle. So I think it'll be a very nice, calming kind of baby color. It's not going to be huge. The crochet blanket's going to be much larger. This is going to be more like not quite like a stroller size, but it's not going to be like bed sized for the baby. So, but I'm excited to get started in that. I'm not going to, however, cast on until I finished my test knit of my own pattern and get that out the door to the tech editor. So it is a little bit. It's funny. We had a on our Zoom call this week. Nancy from Trilogy Yarns was talking about a virtual cast-on party that she attended, and it was with a bunch of some podcasters and knitters that were in the UK and then some all across the country. And it went on for, I think it was like a 12-hour Zoom. Not everyone was there the whole time, but like people come and went, obviously different time zones and things like that. But they just go on and cast on, and talk about what they're casting on. But she said, she cast on like 4 or 5 or 6 like projects, sweater projects during that cast on. And then she was talking about, someone else that she watches on YouTube that has like a wall where there's like 30 or 40 whips, which just, kind of like made my, like 4 or 5 is like kind of my happy spot. But I think she had a very good point in that she would, she could cast on, and then she has, projects that like are perfect for Zoom knitting where it's just around and around and around, not much thinking. And then when she gets to a color work or, increase or pattern or something like that, where she needs the concentration, she puts it on, but she always has one she can pick up. So sort of for background knitting. But I've got to say, I'm a little bit outside of my comfort zone with the number of projects that I currently have on the knitting, and the fact that November is sort of looming when these 2 babies are coming. Now I think I will be forgiven if I don't have them completely done the minute the baby is born, but I don't want this to go as long as the housewarming gift, which is like 2 years late at this point. I don't know what the statute of limitations on baby gifts until you've it becomes rude that you haven't finished your project, but hopefully by sometime in November I will get these 2 out the door. But then in the spring I'm really going to be just knitting for myself. So I did have this idea, and maybe it'll just be, since I'm doing the Stephen West blanket and the Stephen West bubble bandana, and I did have this idea that I'm not going to be doing the mystery knit along this year, although I just saw Stephen West post about it and it got me excited to want to do it. But because I have all these Stephen West patterns that I want to do, I have the yarn picked out for them. I thought, and my knitting group, there were several people who were like, I want to knit this Stephen West pattern. I want to knit that Stephen West pattern. I was thinking about doing a non-mystery knit along Stephen West knit along during the mystery knit along, so we could all work on Stephen West projects that we could kind of participate in that fun, but not have to feel the pressure or obligation or whatever to work on the actual mystery knit along. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, drop me a comment down below. I'm not opposed to adding one more whip to the pile. Who knows? And it could carry over into the spring, and then it will be just knitting for me, but it will be this project that I started in the fall. Because I have, like I said, I have a bin that's specifically dedicated. It's like it's a letter size bin, but there's probably like 6 or 7 kits in there, and I feel like I just kind of should just reach in and grab one, and whatever that pattern is that comes out, they're all Stephen West, and just do that one. So we shall see. I'll feel better about starting something new once I have something finished, I suppose. It's been a pretty quiet week, or a couple weeks, in terms of acquisitions, as hopefully I will have shown you previously. My tubes came from totally Tubular, but so those are kind of acquisitions because I already had the yarn, but it's a new thing. The only other thing that I've gotten was, I mentioned Knitted Wit. I got this yarn Canopy again on her worsted base that I was going to use for one of the Brat themed projects. Still may get done, who knows. And then the only thing was this month's Woolens and Nosh. It's been a week or so, so if you are a Woolens and Nosh monthly sock club subscriber and you don't want to see the August colorway, avert your eyes. If not, 3, 2, 1, here it is. So pretty. I love those sort of dusty pinks and yellows together, and the aqua is kind of a fun contrast for that. So the colorway is called Afternoon Delight, and this is on Michelle's 9010 Targi nylon sock base. So this is the Woolens and Nosh was not one of the yarns I sent off. Well, you have already seen this if you're watching this, but if for some reason it didn't go in, because Elma from Totally Tubular, I was asking about the gauge because I was like, I found that I think 72 inches on the US 1 gets me the gauge, which is I think like 8.5 stitches an inch kind of gauge that I like in the fabric, and I didn't know what the gauge on her machine gave you at the various stitches and yarns. And she said that she was pretty consistent in being able to get that gauge on like a 80-20 base or a 75-25 base. So I just sent a couple of those. You've already seen them, so I'm sure they were amazing. I will see them shortly when I go out to get the mail. But that's it. That's it on the on the acquisitions front. So it's been pretty quiet. I'm not expecting anything else coming for a while, except I'll get another Magpie box probably, and another Woolens and Nosh skein of yarn. But I think it's going to be a relatively quiet fall from on the yarn front. Now I just got to get through all the stuff that I've purchased. Anyway, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend it with me. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe and share so we can continue to build this community. I am planning to do this again in a couple of weeks, so I will give you all an update on the Makers for Kamala efforts that are going on. Again, I think it's going to be a really fun night. Again, thank you so much for spending some time with me. Have a safe and fun Labor Day weekend. Go have some great barbecue, and I will see you in a couple weeks. Bye.